Hey everyone, and thanks for joining us for our daily semifinal recap show. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Day 2 just wrapped up at Strength and Depth. We have Brian Friend here to recap all the action. Lots of changes going on the leaderboards. After the second day, what are just your initial thoughts of the competition?
All three divisions have really tightened up. With the exception of the Oslo team, there's a good battle for the podium spots in all three divisions, and also at the bubble. So it's really setting up for a pretty exciting day tomorrow across all three divisions.
All right, let's first take a look at the team division we have here. And as you mentioned, CrossFit Oslo Navy Blue kind of running away with the competition. But we'll start with event 3, the Snatch Ladder. Heat 1, a few men, they made it to the last bar. Nobody hit the lift. But then in Heat 2, both members of Nordic Original, including their alternate, Eric Rubio, cleared the ladder, a PR for Eric. And Alvaro hit 192 kilos. More generally speaking, though, Brian, how important was this for them to reclaim some of that momentum after event 2 the night before?
Yeah, obviously there's been a lot of talk about the CrossFit Nordic Original team in the past few weeks, and this was big for them, especially to have both their guys do that great on the lifting. I mean, Rubio has had a chance to talk about it in an interview over there that it's been, 2.5 weeks maybe that he has had to prepare for this competition. And that's not a lot of time to, you don't know necessarily where he was in a training cycle or something like that. So to come out and snatch that much weight in a situation where you have, basically no control over the variables is really impressive. And this performance of second place on the lifting is really that much better considering that Michaela Norman is not known for her lifting, and she bowed out pretty early on, I think of maybe around 65 kilos or something, which means the other three were, significantly stronger relative to this field, which is obviously great.
When we look at Heat 1 on the women's side for teams, we had 3 women make it on the final platform. We had Georgia Davenport from Rotterdam hitting 86 kilos, Grace Lilly from the motion team at 85 kilos, and Jasmine Spencer from Bladen at 86 kilos. Were you surprised by any of these 3 women to actually make it that far?
It was pretty interesting actually because on the men's side, none of the guys made it or made any successful lifts at the last platform in the first heat. So for the women to do so was good. There weren't any like huge numbers, those are right above the minimum that you can lift at the last platform, but making it through all 10 bars and then hitting a lift at the 11th is, pretty impressive. There's not that many people that necessarily do it. So good for each of those women.
Yeah, and then even in Heat 2, Emily Moeller Olson from Sparresboro, she hit 90 kilos. That's pretty significant for these ladies on the teams.
Yeah, best lift of the day for the women, and she said that she'd recently hit a 93 kilo PR, but she thought that like 87 might be good for today, and she was just feeling great, and she hit that lift, and that's a really great moment for her.
When you look at the athletes, Richer and Hodney, they easily both cleared the ladder, hitting 86 on platform. How good are these two, really?
Yeah, Lena Richter and Ingrid Hadnemer, those
Thank you.
ladies.
Those ones. Brian always with the
Yeah,
good pronunciation. But how good are they really? Especially when we think of them beating Mayhem, the Mayhem ladies in Wadapalooza. Is this duo the best females on the women's side for the teams?
yeah, it's a great question, and I remember in 2019 talking to some team athletes at the time, and there was a very exclusive, I think, 14 teams in the field that year. And someone was pointing out Andrea Nisler and Taylor Williamson, and even though they weren't on Mayhem then, they were on the OC3 team. They said that's the best combination of women in the teams competition, and I have thought that very strongly ever since then, until I saw these two in Wadapalooza, and now I do think that this is a good question and a good conversation. I don't know if there's necessarily a way to definitely answer it, but if as much as people respect what Andrea and Taylor can do, Lena and Ingrid deserve that same level of respect in terms of their like well-roundedness as individual athletes, which we see in an expression of lifting, and the ring muscle ups yesterday and the handstand walking, but also as their ability to work on a team. And you'll see that this is throughout the weekend, and when we get to the games, you'll see that this team is very good at just about everything, and you can't do that without two incredible women. So
Mm.
they are definitely in the conversation.
Looking at event 4, we had Butcher Leb BL, they came into this workout ninth overall. They won first in their heat, good for third overall, and it's really tightening up for that final couple of game spots. But do you think that this finish could get them back into that mix?
Yeah, if you go back to the overall rankings there, like we said at the top, there's a really tight gap around the bubble. And so you have, I think it's from fourth all the way down to Butcher's Lab that's an eighth. It's only a 35-point spread, and
Hmm.
that's two spots available, assuming that none of those Norwegian teams, have a really bad day tomorrow. Butcher's Lab is kind of the cutoff for me. So I think that they've came from heat one and they had those good workouts, ninth and third today, to move themselves into the final heat and potentially within striking distance if they have two good workouts relative to the closest teams tomorrow.
And when we look at that cutoff line, I want to focus in on Ellsbury. They took a 14th and fell out of the top five. Is this surprising for a team with so much experience? Three of their four athletes have been at the games last year.
Yeah, definitely. This is a very much a teamwork oriented workout with the worm and the synchro work that was required. So, it's always tough to know what happened out there, but I would have expected this to be one of the workouts they did best on this weekend, and here they are at their worst event finish so far. So hopefully it's not injury related and everyone's healthy and ready to go, but definitely a little bit of a surprising one for them. And now they have some ground to make up tomorrow.
They certainly do. One more day of competition, but we're going to move in now to the men's field, event three, to kick off the day. From heat one and Hude from heat two, taking the win here at 150 kilos or 330 pounds. We talked about both of them yesterday, but how important was this for both of their chances and confidence even moving forward into the final day?
Oh yeah, I think that both Christoph and Andre would not have been happy with where they were sitting after day one, but they certainly didn't let that affect their performances today. Christoph went out there in that first heat. He didn't open at anything super aggressive, but he made nice big jumps. He hit all three of his lifts, and he ends up taking a tie for the event win out of heat one. Hude very much in the same vein. In fact, it looked like Hude had it in the tank to win this one outright. He didn't need to, of course. And so taking the 100 points either way is great for him. But, I mean, that's a lift, and it's one thing to do well on the lift, but then, they had this down and back chipper in the afternoon, and tough workout. Christoph again has to go in the first heat.
Hmm.
He's kind of running away with it, so it's always harder to race in that environment, but he sets up a time that still gives him a top 10 finish. And then Hude looked just really good in here. I think, again, he might have liked to be in the last heat, but because he was not going that fast on the deadlifts, and I would have liked to see him race Catullus because I think they got there at a similar time.
Hmm.
But either way, first and a second, almost as many points as you can get, and it puts Andre actually in the 5 spot with 1 day to go.
And somebody else who's certainly in the mix after day two is going to be Ludwig Hansen. He was able to continue to impress us, opening at 140 kilos, hitting 144 or a total of 317 pounds for another top 10 finish. Is he going to move up, do you think, or will he stay right at that last chance qualifier spot at the finish of tomorrow?
I think it's really hard to say. I mean, the lifting was super impressive. Oh, I mentioned that Christoph won the event, and he with a 150, and this guy opened at 140, which is a lot heavier than Christoph chose to do. So I didn't expect the barbell cycling yesterday to be as good as it was. He backs it up with another great lifting performance today. Takes a little bit of a hit on the chipper, but he's sitting there in 6th place, 1 day to go. I think that he's going to be full of confidence and belief. And a guy like this is kind of scary. I mean, we saw it in Enrico Zanoni over in the lowlands, where it's like no one really expected that from this guy, but he just kept showing up, doing his thing, and he ends up getting a spot to the game. So Ludwig is on the right trajectory here, and honestly, I'm excited to see if he can remain, competitive, because there are a lot of guys lurking just behind him as well that are really good.
Hmm. Talking about a couple other guys that were in the mix for event three today, PD Savage and Tommaso Pierre, they missed their first two lifts. How hard is it to hit a complex like this, especially in the final round when you know that you need it?
Oh man, I mean, you hear the commentators all talk about it, like hit a safe lift in the first attempt
Hmm.
and then go from there. And when you miss your first lift, like no one's putting on a weight, everyone's putting a weight on that they think they're going to hit. And when you miss it, everything unhinges, and it's, you have to redial back in, and you have to make sure to log score. When you miss two, that is really, really tough. And look, you're lifting out there with one or two other people, or one other person at most. Everyone's watching you, so it's, the pressure is really on. So I was really impressed with both of those guys, regaining composure and executing a solid complex in the last round. That's, I think, amongst one of the hardest things to do in the sport, probably.
Sure. And then moving into the final event for the men for the day, event four, Horvath and Houdet. Were you impressed watching their performances in their heats?
Yeah, it's kind of a cool workout because Catullus and Briand, who end up taking first and third here, they're not the biggest guys, but Houdet and Horvath are some of the bigger guys, and we saw them obviously execute the lift really well. So to have a workout like this, where some big guys and some small guys can both filter into the top five, and then you also factor in that they're coming out of 3 different heats, that's a cool workout program to be able to do that. And it speaks to just the depth of this men's field. There's not really anyone running away with it, but there are a lot of guys that are competitive, and even if they're not competitive for a game spot right now, they're still very influential in terms of the points because they can compete in certain workouts. So this is a field that you want to make the games. You can't afford to have a bad finish because a lot of guys can sneak in there pretty easily.
So what does it say about Catullus? I mean, you look at workout 3 where he took a 20th, workout 2 he took 10th, workout 1 7th, but then gets that event win on workout 4. What does that say about his performance and overall fitness, really?
Yeah, Catullus is an interesting athlete for sure, and he does have, for someone who's probably as not that well known as he is, he actually has this sneaky home run potential to have very good finishes, but they're always in similar style of events. So I went to check this, and in Dubai in 2019, he did fairly well there. He finished, I think, 11th, but he had 2 finishes in the top 4. It was a workout with handstand walking and a workout with toes to bar and burpee box jump overs was the other one. So you see similar pattern. 2020, strength and depth, good men's field. He took second on a workout with rope climbs and handstand walking. So like these gymnastics, body weight things, he's very, very good at them. In the last chance qualifier, he also had one of the top scores on the burpees to target. So when there's nothing really to slow him down in terms of weight, he moves very, very well. And you saw his handstand walking, one of the fastest in the field. So this, I think he can also probably do really well on the legless rope climb workout tomorrow, and that you'll
Mm-hmm.
see this as being an athlete that has a couple great finishes, a couple mediocre, and maybe one bad, the lifting one. And the question is, will it be enough for him? And it's going to be really close.
And then I want to just look at the overall leaderboard for the men's before we move to the women's side. But we have in fourth, Briand. Is this where you would expect to see him? 2/3, 2/10. He holds one of the qualifying spots so far headed into the final day.
Yeah, he's the only rookie or would-be rookie in the qualifying spot, and you see 10th, third, 10th, third. It's not that bad, and then one of the 10th coming on the lifting, so he's got decent strength to hang tough there. The other one on the endurance event, which means that on these CrossFit style events, he's been third and third. Tomorrow's got a kind of a gymnastic specialty, legless rope climb, so we'll see if that trends more in the way of one of these thirds, or if it trends in the way that the other kind of unilateral tests have, which is a little bit worse. But I would expect him to do well in the final, and this is a guy that's probably not that well known outside of France, but he's been doing fairly well on like online style workouts, and there's some of those that have shown up here, and he's been doing well again. So I think he's in the mix. He's put himself in the mix, and it'll be tough for him because there's see some of these guys lurking, like we talked about, especially when you look at Yonakoski in 8th place. You just have to wonder if he's going to make a push tomorrow. But Brian's been good, and I think he has a chance.
We'll have to just wait and see. Moving on to the women's field now. Event 3, Solveig. She hits 103 kilos or 227 pounds for the event win. When you're second on an endurance event like event 1, first on a lifting, it's a pretty good sign that maybe this will be the year she can qualify for the CrossFit Games, right, Brian?
Yeah, she's almost the inverse of Briant that we just talked about, where she's shining on these workouts that really highlight a specific skill. But to be really good at a long endurance event and one of the best lifters is a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good combination to have. Um, Obviously, the 11th and 15th, they make you wonder about maybe the putting some of those skills together relative to this field. But she's in 4th place. All she has to do is make it to the game. She's been building towards this for a long time. So she just needs to manage that legless rope climb workout, make sure that nothing terrible happens there, and I think she'll do pretty well in the final.
All right, so somebody who we've obviously been talking about, especially once we saw the programming, is Sam Briggs. You know, how can when you look at where she placed for this lift relative to the field?
Last place, you mean?
Yes.
Last place. I think this is the lowest lift anyone's done in the world, actually, and I think it was just a strategy for her. I think that she knew that even if everything went perfectly, she might eke out 3 more points, maybe beat 1 woman or 2 women or something like that. But what would it cost her body in terms of the ability to perform on the next 3 workouts, all of which I think she believes that at worst can be top 10 in those workouts. And sure enough, she backs it up with a 7th, which is, pretty good. And most of the women that are beating her are just the best women here. So, she's giving away points to that top, but she's making up some ground on the women that are, she's trying to fight with for maybe the last game spot. She'll have to dominate the legless rope climb workout tomorrow. That's one that should be, I'd say a top 5 at worst for her. And if she does that, then I think she'll move even closer to that last spot. And then in the final, she has the opportunity to go for it if she needs to and see what happens.
Katrin Sutter, another athlete who certainly has been working on her strength. She hit 93 kilos, 205 pounds. She looked pretty happy about it for her second lift. Was this enough for her to stay relevant and in the mix?
I think she got, like in terms of the lifting, she got a pretty good draw here of the whole women's field. This is one of the lower average women's weights lifted that we've seen. I think only so far heavier than Far East and Cape Town. And so, but it's a field that you draw. And so we know that she's never going to do great on the lift, but 11th place ends up giving her a decent amount of points here that she may not have got it in a different field. And she'll take it. She's only 11 points out of a qualifying spot at this point. Obviously, she's got that, the experience to draw on. She'll be ready to go on Sunday. And some of these other women are trying to make it for the first time. So they'll probably be feeling the pressure in a different way. And it's unknown how they'll respond to that. So look for Katrin to, I think, be revitalized from Saturday and very hungry on Sunday.
And with the lifting on the women's field, we had so many tie for fourth. Two of those women were McQuaid and Dahlstrom. They are known for, or neither of them are known for their lifting. It's something they've really been trying to improve on. Is the field just not as competitive, kind of as you were just speaking about, but like, is this enough for them to both stay in the mix because of the semifinal they're competing in?
Yeah, the lifting, I would say for sure. Those lifts would be somewhere in between 55 and 65 worldwide when you look at all the lifting that people have done on this workout and still have Atlas games to go. But it doesn't matter. It's against this field. And what I would say was the best part about the lifting for both of those women was just how good it looked. Like they were cleaning the bar well. One of them chose to power clean, one to squat clean. Their squats were good and their jerks were really solid. So overall movement quality was high. Result, they'll take it.
It's enough for them, especially for the semifinal. Moving on to the final workout of the day for the women. Katrin, she was off to a hot start. Then Thury, she passed her on those toes to bar. How big was this event win for Thury, especially after taking it on event 3?
Yeah, it was massive, and I think it keeps her right up there in the top 3, which is kind of where she deserves to be based on what she's done so far. Emma and Jacqueline put a little bit of distance between her on the lift. She took some back here on this with this event win, of course, and she looked really good doing it. A lot of people were struggling on that last set of dumbbells or kettlebells, and she just kind of stuck with it and had a nice solid finish. Very impressive there. I think she'll be fine. Do really well on the legless workout, and she should be going back to the games. She's been looking good, and it's nice to see.
As for Katrin Davidsdottir, she looks like she obviously wanted to take that event win. She needed a good placement on this final event, but was able to manage third. She stays into that mix. Is this going to be enough for her to actually be in conversations when we look at who is going to go to the CrossFit Games this year?
Yeah, like we talked about at the top, it's really tight. So from kind of fourth place Sigurdardottir all the way down to eighth Burke in 10th, it's only 62 points. We've seen bigger amounts than that made up in one workout. And we know that legless rope climb workout can throw a wrench into things for certain women. So I'm expecting someone in this group, maybe more than one, to have a tough workout there and fall out of it. And probably by the time the final comes around, we'll be narrowing in on a group of 4 women for maybe 1 or 2 remaining game spots. I think that
And
Sam Briggs and Katrin will both be in that 4. And then it's just gonna be a matter of that. I think the last workout's gonna be really exciting because you can go for it on a workout like that.
yeah, for sure. Sitting right above Katrin, though, Elisa Fuliano. What do you know about her?
Well, I mentioned Enrico Zanoni earlier, and this is like deja vu in terms of this relatively young, unknown Italian woman who's in a games qualifying spot with 1 day to go. She
Mm.
doesn't even, I couldn't find very much information on her. She did make a really impressive improvement from last year's European quarterfinals to this year's, where I think she came from in the 120s all the way up to 34th. She had a really good workout this year, and the rowing, burpee box jump over snatch workout. The last workout here has a machine, a bike, uh, the burpees over something, and then barbell cycling with the thruster. So it's a similar feel, and I think if she can, she's a big question for her is the legless rope climb workout. I don't have any idea if that's something she's going to do well on or not. If she hangs tough, that last workout could be a good one for her, and we might be sending another rookie from Italy to the games.
Wow. One more day of competition, Brian. Who are you keeping your eye on? Do you think that there's going to be like some major change ups on who actually punches their ticket from the semifinal?
I think there will. I think there will be some exchanging of spots for sure. I'm keeping my eye actually on the veterans today. So Katrin and Sam, Yonakoski, and the team from Islesbury all outside the cut line right now, and I want to see if they're able to fight their way back in tomorrow.
More day. It's anyone's race. Brian, thanks for recapping with us. We'll see you tomorrow.